NASA's James Webb Space Telescope has hardly opened its eyes, and the universe is new.
NASA officials reveal they have decoded transmissions from 3I Atlas. What it says might change everything.
Here is our advice based on the research that has accumulated thus far.
Right.
And as that research continues to come in, we may make adjustments to the advice we're giving you now. Stay tuned.
When the James Webb Space Telescope tilted its golden mirrors toward the faint wanderer known as 3I Atlas, astronomers braced for revelations, but not like this. They expected chemistry, dust trails, perhaps the frozen fingerprints of a star system far away. After all, its predecessors, 2I Borisov and the infamous Oumuamua, had already rewritten textbooks. Each interstellar visitor is a messenger, carrying in its silence the stories of worlds we'll never see. This new traveler swept in from the abyss beyond the sun, dragging with it chemical whispers and secrets of creation. It was supposed to be another chance to decode the birth of comets, planets, even solar systems. Yet as Webb's instruments drank in the light, something emerged that no theory had prepared us for. Against the infinite black, illumination patterns appeared, too sharp, too regular, too alive to belong to chance. Artificial lights. At first, the research team dismissed it. Instrument noise, a cosmic ray glitch, a calibration slip. But the signals did not fade. The scans repeated, and the rhythm persisted. Steady, deliberate, unlike any sunlight shimmering off ice. These emissions carried a signature so precise, it shattered every expectation. Where natural reflections scatter, flicker, and fade, this light held steady, unyielding, almost defiant, as if 3I Atlas itself was glowing with intention. The James Webb Space Telescope, designed to read the birth cries of galaxies and decode the breath of exoplanets, had instead uncovered something far closer and infinitely stranger: the possibility of engineered illumination adrift within our solar system. The implications hit like a tidal wave across observatories, labs, and control rooms worldwide. If Webb's readings were accurate, this was more than a discovery. It was a rewriting of humanity's place in the cosmos. Artificial light meant structure, structure meant design, and design meant intelligence. Suddenly, 3I Atlas was no longer just a frozen relic from deep space. It could be something built, something steered, something inhabited. Webb's near-infrared instruments confirmed it with merciless clarity. Spectral lines emerged, not only consistent with chemical fluorescence, but patterned like concentrated emissions, light sculpted, not scattered. It was as though hidden deep within, or etched across its jagged surface, luminous constructs pulsed with a precision no natural process could replicate. For centuries, silence had defined the cosmos. Even decades of radio listening from Arecibo to Greenbank yielded nothing but emptiness. For decades, the search for extraterrestrial intelligence had ended in silence. Every sweep of the skies, every listening ear pressed against the cosmic void, returned nothing but emptiness, fuel for skeptics who argued we were chasing ghosts. But now, standing at the razor's edge of certainty, Webb had delivered something different, something undeniable. Light, the most universal of signals, recognizable by any mind, no matter where it evolved. And what Webb captured was not the erratic chaos of starlight, not the fleeting sparks of a comet shedding dust. This was sharp, unwavering, as if 3I Atlas shimmered with the glow of a hidden metropolis. Only this city sprawled across the skin of an object from another star. The choice of light itself was as provocative as the signal. Why not radio? Why not chemistry? Perhaps because light is the simplest truth, to be seen. A civilization crossing gulfs of interstellar darkness might not speak our words, might not guess our tools, but they could know that any species with eyes and telescopes would notice something glowing in the abyss where nothing should glow. That meant 3I Atlas might not be a mere drifter at all. It could be a messenger deliberately allowing itself to be discovered, or, far more unsettling, it could be a probe, its lighting not a beacon, but part of its operation, caught only because Webb's vision is sharper than anything before it. Still, science demanded caution. Could constant outgassing mimic this glow? Could exotic chemical reactions on its crust create such steady brilliance? But each hypothesis collapsed under the weight of the evidence. Nature, as Webb has shown us time and again, is wild and unruly. Rarely does it draw perfect lines, and never does it repeat itself with the cold precision of a machine. Yet here the wavelengths aligned with eerie neatness, the energy confined to razor-thin bands, the rhythm too exacting to be born of chaos. What Webb saw did not resemble a comet or a rock. It resembled control, The discovery triggered a storm of follow-up campaigns. Hubble was turned toward the traveler. Ground-based observatories strained their mirrors skyward. Radio arrays pivoted, hungry for whispers in the static. Independent verification was no longer optional. It was essential. Though these instruments lacked Webb's unmatched infrared sensitivity, faint anomalies began to surface, brightness curves that refused to fluctuate, glimmers of unnatural steadiness, reflections that seemed engineered rather than incidental. The picture remained incomplete, but its silhouette was unmistakable. Something about 3i Atlas spoke of design, and with that suggestion came the weight of philosophy itself. For millennia, we have asked whether intelligence is a fluke, a lone spark in an endless dark, or whether the cosmos is fertile ground where minds inevitably bloom. Now, in the quiet glow of an interstellar wanderer, that question teetered from speculation into evidence. This was no longer about probabilities or equations scribbled on chalkboards. This was data. This was contact, not in shouts or signals, but in silence, in light, in undeniable presence. The sky above was no longer a mute backdrop of stars. It was alive with possibility, hinting at others who had crossed the gulf long before us. The practical implications hit like thunder. If 3i Atlas carried technology, then what exactly was its glow? Was it a surface coating engineered to shine, a protective shield bleeding energy, or an inner system leaking light from some hidden machinery? Each possibility hinted at an intelligence capable of designs, choices both alien and deliberate, choices that felt far beyond our own reach, yet not so advanced as to be incomprehensible. Webb's unmatched sensitivity even allowed scientists to estimate the output. The verdict was astonishing. The energy was great, but not limitless. That meant efficiency, purpose, restraint. Whoever, or whatever, had built this thing was not broadcasting recklessly. It was managing power with intent. Speculation exploded across the scientific world. Some argued the steady on-off rhythm resembled a primitive binary, the skeleton of a universal language. Perhaps the object wasn't just shining, it was speaking. Others imagined a simpler purpose, lights as signals, akin to navigation beacons on planes or ships, designed to announce presence and prevent catastrophic collisions in the dark. And then came the darker voices. What if the glow had nothing to do with us? What if it wasn't a message at all, but a byproduct of operation, part of a reactor, a guidance system, or even life support machinery sustaining something inside? No matter the interpretation, one fact could not be erased. Intelligence had touched this traveler, and the timing of its revelation was almost poetic. Humanity stands at its own crossroads. Artificial intelligence reshaping thought, rockets pushing us deeper into space, Webb itself born to probe cosmic origins, not to stumble upon neighbors. The discovery forced an immediate shift in perspective. In a single moment, Webb's mission stretched far beyond its original quest to glimpse the faint light of ancient galaxies. Those polished golden mirrors, designed to capture whispers from 13 billion years ago, had instead revealed something present, deliberate, and alien. It was as though the telescope, built to search the past, had stumbled into a conversation happening now. The very idea of interstellar objects was transformed. Once they were cataloged as little more than cosmic flukes, chunks of ice and rock, ejected from distant systems and drifting until gravity dragged them close. But if even one such traveler carried technology, then the entire category fractured. Natural and artificial were no longer neat, separate boxes. They overlapped, blurred, and bled into one another. What if the galaxy is not empty, but seeded with emissaries? Silent archives adrift between suns, drifting libraries of civilizations, waiting for the moment another species developed the eyes to notice. Each new detection might not be coincidence at all, but a message left in transit, patiently awaiting discovery. As Webb's findings spread, they ignited something more powerful than equations: imagination. The notion of artificial light shimmering across an object from another star refused to stay locked in laboratories. It spilled outward into culture, into art, into everyday wonder. Painters envisioned radiant structures carved into alien stone. Writers filled pages with tales of ancient voyages, and ordinary people lifted their gaze skyward, seeing not isolation, but possibility. The revelation was intimate, almost tender. Light, the same force that guides ships through darkness and spills from our cities at night, was glowing unnaturally on a wanderer from another sun. Light had become a bridge, and it had been crossed. Every photon captured by Webb was dissected with surgical care, astronomers wary of making claims that history might later dismantle. Skepticism, the heartbeat of science, remained their shield. And yet here, even skepticism began to crack beneath the sheer weight of evidence. Every recalibration, every control experiment, every desperate attempt to explain it away only sharpened the truth. Webb was flawless. The instruments worked exactly as designed. The lights were there, and they were not natural. The implications raced beyond astronomy into the realms of policy, strategy, even survival. If 3I Atlas carried technology, should we dare to meet it? Could we send probes to intercept, to peel back its mysteries? The idea was intoxicating, but physics was merciless. Like Oumuamua before it, this object tore through the solar system at tens of kilometers per second. Too swift, too fleeting. By the time humanity could prepare, it would be gone, swallowed again by the outer dark. Webb's glimpse, dazzling and brief, might be the only one we would ever get. That very limitation deepened the enigma. What we had was tantalizing but incomplete. Evidence of intelligence that brushed past us like a shadow, leaving more questions than answers. And yet, it was undeniable. In the halls of philosophy, in the sanctuaries of theology, the reverberations were immediate. Ancient questions about creation, uniqueness, purpose, roared back with new force. To know, even faintly, that intelligence exists elsewhere is to redraw the borders of identity itself. Whether 3I Atlas was a probe, a vessel, or a shard of something far greater, its light whispered of civilizations capable of feats humanity had only dreamed of. It spoke of survival across interstellar gulfs, endurance against time itself, and the will to launch creations into the abyss. Those qualities struck a chord deep within us, reflecting our own ambitions back across the stars, like a mirror of destiny. Each fresh analysis from Webb only deepened the riddle. Subtle fluctuations in brightness hinted at structured surfaces, rotating panels perhaps, or controlled emission grids. The unwavering stability of its wavelengths suggested engineered materials unknown to Earth. And yet, nothing about the data defied physics. It was advanced, astonishingly so, but not supernatural. It belonged to a spectrum of technology, a continuum we could imagine ourselves walking someday. That recognition alone carried weight. If they could achieve this, then perhaps, in time, so could we. The discovery marked a turning point in how humanity thought of space. No longer was it merely a cold wilderness of stone and gas, a canvas for human conquest. Instead, it became a stage, one already occupied by other actors, unseen until now. We were not pioneers breaking untouched ground. We were late arrivals stepping into a cosmic theater already in motion. The lights of 3I Atlas were more than illumination. They were a signpost, a marker planted in the dark, a quiet declaration that the galaxy itself is not silent, that it never was. It was inhabited, not by life as we know it, but by structure, by intention, by intelligence woven into its very skin. When Webb first confirmed the strange light signatures from 3I Atlas, astronomers found themselves pressed against the edge of language itself. To speak the word artificial in a scientific paper is no small thing. It demands proof so strong it bends doubt into silence. And yet, with every fresh observation, Webb stacked another undeniable layer. From the very beginning, the signals refused to vanish. They remained stubbornly consistent, immune to reinterpretation as instrument error, immune to dismissal as natural quirk. They showed coherence across multiple wavelengths, a steady glow that clung to the object even as it rotated, even as it slipped farther away. The light seemed etched into its very frame, locked into patterns that defied the chaos of chance. Rotation did not scatter them, distance did not weaken them, perspective did not erase them. The glow endured, as if the traveler itself had been sculpted to shine. And with that, the last shreds of doubt began to fall away. This object was not just illuminated, it was meant to be illuminated. The realization cracked open a profound tension. In conference halls and behind closed doors, the world's finest minds wrestled with how to speak of it without collapsing into sensationalism. Skepticism is the blood of science, but skepticism too has limits. At some point, objectivity demands honesty. And so, quietly, reluctantly, the word slipped from draft to discussion, from whisper to print. Artificial. The word artificial carried a gravity that could not be ignored. With it came speculation, not just from astronomers, but from engineers, physicists, and energy theorists. How could such lights exist? Webb's measurements revealed something startling. The energy demands, while extraordinary, were not infinite. The glow was powerful, yes, but bounded, controlled, like a system tuned for precision, not for spectacle. That detail electrified researchers. It meant design with intention. These were not reckless floodlights blazing into the void. They were efficient, restrained, engineered. Some envisioned vast arrays of nanoscale emitters stitched across the traveler's surface, pulsing in coordination like a living circuit. Others imagine deep internal cores funneling energy outward through channels of impossible efficiency, a technology with no wasted heat, no excess radiation, only clean precision. And that lack of waste carried its own meaning. If this illumination was artificial, then its makers had achieved an energy discipline far beyond our own. Not brute force, but mastery. But beyond the technical awe lingered the deeper, more unsettling question: intent. Was the light meant to be seen? If so, by whom? Its brightness was faint, just strong enough to be caught by instruments like Webb, yet subtle enough to slip past the naked eye, past amateur telescopes. Not an open broadcast, but a whisper. That detail chilled even the most skeptical minds. Could another intelligence truly have anticipated the reach of a telescope humanity had only just unfurled? Or had the lights of 3I Atlas been burning for centuries, awaiting the day when our instruments were finally sharp enough to notice? The thought that this glow might be deliberate, that it had been tuned for discovery in this exact moment of history, was as thrilling as it was terrifying. Reactions spread like wildfire, far beyond the walls of observatories. Scientists struggled to temper their caution, but culture has no brakes. News outlets splashed headlines with lurid images of glowing alien craft. Illustrations stretched far beyond the sober truth. Artists painted radiant monoliths adrift among stars. Writers proclaimed the dawn of a new chapter in human history. Philosophers compared it to fire, to agriculture, to the first ships that dared to cross an unknown ocean. For centuries we wondered. Now the wondering had collided with observation. The silence we thought eternal was broken, not by sound, but by light. The universe was no longer empty. Its inhabitants had left their fingerprints, shining across the void, visible to the eyes of humankind. And with that, perspective itself widened. Until this moment, interstellar visitors were curiosities, drifting stones from other suns. Oumuamua's strange course had sparked debate, but in the end, it lingered in ambiguity. Borisov had offered a more conventional story, a comet in all but origin. Oumuamua had been puzzling, Borisov intriguing. But 3I Atlas, with its steady artificial glow, redrew the map entirely. No longer were these wanderers mere curiosities, drifting relics of cosmic chemistry. They were emissaries. Each one might carry not just dust and ice, but the fingerprints of civilizations. The interstellar medium, once imagined as barren emptiness, now shimmered with possibility. Perhaps full of relics, probes, and markers drifting silently until gravity or curiosity pulled them into view. The psychological shock was immense. Human identity has always leaned on context, on knowing where we stand against the backdrop of the larger environment. For centuries, that environment seemed clear. Earth was our cradle, and the sky above was silent. But Webb's detection shattered that frame. Suddenly, every glance at the night sky carried weight. It was no longer just starlight twinkling above us. It was the afterglow of action, of building, of intelligence reaching across gulfs of time and space. The realization burrowed into every layer of thought. Scientific, cultural, spiritual. It rewrote how we saw ourselves. We were no longer solitary beings adrift in an endless void, but members of a larger community whose presence had only now brushed against ours. Philosophers unearthed old questions, holding them up in this new light. Were we still unique? Did intelligence crown humanity, or was it simply one branch in a vast cosmic forest? Some saw the discovery as humbling proof of our smallness, a reminder that we were just one act on a stage far larger than we had dared to imagine. Others saw it as affirmation, evidence that intelligence is not an accident, but the universe's natural flowering, destined to bloom wherever matter learns to dream. If 3I Atlas bore the fingerprints of design, then perhaps life and thought are not rare miracles, but inevitabilities, sparks destined to rise wherever conditions allow. The idea was both humbling and electrifying. Religions too stood at a crossroads. For many traditions, the discovery did not diminish the divine. It magnified it. Creation was grander than imagined, its stage far wider, its mysteries deeper. But for others, the lights on 3I Atlas unsettled long-held narratives of human uniqueness and purpose. Was Earth truly the center of a story, if other hands had already carved their marks across the galaxy? Yet across faiths and philosophies, one response remained constant: wonder. The glow was not only evidence of intelligence, it was evidence of possibility itself. Meanwhile, scientists and engineers shifted from awe to action. Could we reach it? Its velocity was daunting, tearing through the solar system at tens of kilometers per second, but not impossible. With careful timing, existing propulsion systems, boosted by gravitational assists, could, in theory, intercept it. The race was against time. Every day the object drifted farther, every orbit narrowing the window for pursuit. Plans were drafted in haste. Engineers sketched rapid probe designs, even daring to revive concepts of nuclear propulsion or experimental drives to shave years from the journey. Politicians, wary of cost and risk, stalled in debate. Could humanity afford it? More haunting still, could humanity afford not to try? Beneath the bureaucracy ran a sobering truth. The chance was unprecedented. To study 3I Atlas up close was to touch what might be the first artifact of alien technology ever glimpsed. If that chance slipped away, telescopes alone would remain, our only fragile bridge to a mystery racing toward the outer dark. Webb became humanity's lifeline, clinging to the traveler with unblinking vigilance until its schedule demanded it turn away. Every new dataset was dissected with growing imagination. Teams searched for hidden modulation in the glow, subtle flickers that might encode meaning. They scanned for wavelength shifts, desperate for signs of communication rather than mere illumination. Some even suggested the unthinkable, sending signals back. But the idea ignited fierce debate. If 3I Atlas was a probe, should we reveal ourselves? Should we announce our presence to the builders of this light, or remain silent watchers in the dark? Curiosity and caution waged war in equal measure, every proposal shadowed by the chilling question of intent. Among Webb's most provocative findings was the possibility of rotation. The light did not simply shine, it seemed to move. Models suggested that as the object spun, different arrays of glow swept into view with remarkable consistency. This hinted at placement, at geometry, at design. Symmetry emerged from the data. Symmetry in nature is common, spirals of shells, patterns of galaxies. But symmetry and illumination, at interstellar scales, carried a different weight. This was not random scattering, this was arrangement, purpose, organization. The glow seemed distributed with intent, whispering of architecture, of structure, of machines. Minds leapt inevitably to images of probes, vessels, or constructs drifting in silence, their lights pulsing like a heartbeat across the void. Even if such visions remained speculative, one truth could not be avoided. Humanity's timeline had shifted. For decades, humanity assumed that if first contact ever arrived, it would come as a whisper of radio waves or the faint chemical breath of a distant world. Instead, it came as light, etched into the skin of a passing traveler, a fleeting signature of technology gliding silently through our system. By sheer fortune, Webb's unmatched sensitivity caught it. Without those golden mirrors, the glow might have been dismissed as noise, and 3I Atlas would have been logged as nothing more than another anonymous wanderer. That realization carried urgency. If we had seen one, how many others had we missed? If one interstellar body bore artificial lights, then perhaps the galaxy was not a barren wilderness at all, but a crossroads crowded with relics, probes, markers, emissaries, sliding invisibly through the dark. This raised a staggering statistical question. Was 3I Atlas a rare fluke, a cosmic lottery ticket, or part of a much larger pattern? Probability itself began to bend. What once seemed infinitesimal, the chance of detecting evidence of extraterrestrial intelligence, now seemed inevitable. If even one in a handful of known interstellar visitors bore technology, then the galaxy might be saturated with traces of civilizations, their artifacts adrift, waiting for a watchful eye. The enormity of that possibility began to sink in, far beyond scientific circles. Philosophers, poets, politicians, and ordinary stargazers all felt the pull. Humanity's gaze shifted outward with a hunger sharper than ever before. Every telescope pointed at the heavens, every array scanning the sky, every probe launched into the void now carried a new burden, not just to study stars and planets, but to listen for the pulse of intelligence in the dark. Space was no longer a mute theater of gravity and physics. It had become a canvas marked with intention. Each discovery now shimmered with the possibility of connection, each anomaly a potential bridge to another mind. The lights on 3I Atlas did more than spark curiosity. They ignited an entirely new field, interstellar archaeology, the study not of Earth's ruins, but of artifacts cast out from alien stars. The concept thrilled both scientists and dreamers. To reconstruct the stories of civilizations we had never met by studying the objects they left adrift was to turn astronomy into something deeply human, history written in starlight. Yet the most tantalizing question remained. How old was this technology? If 3I Atlas had wandered for millennia, then perhaps its creators were already gone. The glow could be nothing more than the ghostly heartbeat of a civilization erased by time, its machines drifting as monuments to a people who no longer walked their own worlds. That thought gave the discovery a haunting beauty, the possibility that we were not only witnesses to technology, but mourners of a vanished race. And yet, the alternative was equally breathtaking, that its makers still endure, that they still thrive, quietly scattering probes like 3I Atlas across the galaxy. Scouts, messengers, or silent watchmen drifting until noticed. Each scenario carried staggering implications. Were we heirs to the echoes of civilizations past, piecing together fragments of a galactic history older than ourselves? Or were we, at this very moment, contemporaries, neighbors in a cosmos already alive with intelligence and perhaps aware of us? The more humanity pondered the glow of 3I Atlas, the deeper its implications spiraled. Economists began sketching scenarios of unimaginable value. What might we learn from even a fragment of alien engineering? Entire revolutions in energy, materials, and technology could unfold if such a relic were ever studied up close. Political strategists, meanwhile, turned their gaze to ownership. Who would have the right to claim an interstellar artifact? Would it belong to humanity as a whole, or would nations compete, sparking conflict beneath the veil of wonder? As ambition collided with possibility, artists and storytellers moved where science dared not. They filled canvases, pages, and screens with visions, probes that carried seeds of life across the stars, emissaries of peace drifting between civilizations, or silent sentinels stationed to watch and record the rise of new worlds. Whatever the interpretation, one theme returned again and again: connection. The lights of 3I Atlas became a symbol that we are not alone, but threads woven into a fabric stretching across the galaxy. Humanity, long wrapped in the illusion of solitude, now glimpsed itself inside a larger story. And that story electrified the imagination. Classrooms buzzed with awe as teachers shared the discovery. Students looked up from their desks to the night sky, carrying with them the seed of a new identity. The next generation of scientists, engineers, philosophers, and dreamers was already being shaped, not by the silence of the universe, but by its luminous reply. The dream of exploration, once distant, abstract, almost mythic, suddenly became immediate and tangible. To grow up in a world where artificial lights had been detected on an interstellar traveler was to inherit a cosmos redefined. For the students who peered upward after this discovery, the question was no longer, are we alone? But how soon will we know more? How quickly could humanity step outward into the waiting dark? Meanwhile, 3I Atlas pressed on. Its lights pulsed with stubborn steadiness, a heartbeat slipping into the distance. Webb followed for as long as its orbit and instruments allowed. Each observation, another note in a symphony that would never be played twice. And then, as all wanderers must, the object drifted back toward the interstellar dark, returning to the abyss from which it had come. But the data it left behind could never be erased. Humanity had seen something it could not unsee. The artificial glow was burned into our collective memory, etched into the story of what it means to be alive in the universe. This single encounter bent the trajectory of human thought, its ripples destined to echo through generations. The revelation carried lessons of humility, curiosity, and responsibility. If we are not alone, then every action matters, not only to ourselves, but to others who may be watching, building, reaching. The cosmos is no longer a silent expanse. It is shared. The lights of 3I Atlas were not only illumination across the void, they were illumination within the human mind, sparking the awareness that the universe itself might be alive with company. A new recognition dawned. The story of intelligence was never confined to Earth. And in that recognition lay the first sentence of a new chapter, one humanity had only just begun to write. As Webb's data from 3I Atlas rippled through the astronomical community, a fresh complexity emerged: interpretation. The lights themselves were undeniable, but meaning, what they truly signified, depended on the lens through which they were seen. Physicists honed in on mechanics, dissecting wavelengths, coherence, modulation, treating the glow as a technical puzzle. Anthropologists, however, looked through another frame. They saw behavior, culture, the faint outline of intent. If this glow was artificial, then it was more than technology. It was a statement, a reflection of priorities, values, perhaps even philosophy. For light is a universal language. To shine in the dark is to demand notice. And to be noticed is to proclaim existence. That simple act alone spoke volumes about its makers. Whoever built this object wanted to be known, or, at the very least, left behind something that could not be forgotten. Historians of science drew parallels that resonated across time. The lights of 3I Atlas, they argued, were like the first maritime beacons on Earth. Before satellites, before radio, civilizations built lighthouses, structures of stone and fire, to guide sailors, mark coastlines, and warn of danger. In the same way, this glow could be a galactic lighthouse, guiding, signaling, or simply standing as a monument of presence. The artificial glow of 3I Atlas could be seen as nothing less than a cosmic lighthouse. Perhaps it was guiding its own path, or perhaps it was marking a route meant for others to follow. If humanity could make that analogy, then maybe, just maybe, that was the very intent of its designers. After all, light is the simplest, most universal of signals. It pierces darkness. It requires no shared language. It travels across unimaginable distances unchanged. To shine is to say, we are here. In this sense, the illumination of 3I Atlas might not only be technological, but cultural, a deliberate act of communication crafted for universality, a message written in brightness, intelligible to any who watch the stars. This thought cracked open new speculation about the galactic stage. Could 3I Atlas be only one of many such beacons, part of a vast network strung between suns? The notion of a navigational grid, an interstellar highway of glowing markers, suddenly felt less like science fiction and more like an elegant solution for civilizations spanning cosmic distances. Such markers would make sense. Each illuminated traveler could serve as both guide and declaration. Breadcrumbs scattered through the galaxy to mark presence and chart passage. And if this was true, then the implication was staggering. 3I Atlas was not alone. Somewhere, scattered across the void, others might be waiting to be found. The tantalizing possibility followed. If astronomers learn where to look, they may not just find more wanderers. They might discover an entire system of light, a trail of illumination stretching back to the origin of these emissaries. At the same time, cosmochemists confronted a question that blurred the line between matter and machine. How did the lights merge with the body of 3I Atlas itself? Interstellar objects are usually nothing more than rock, ice, and dust, mute debris flung outward from their birth stars. But this one seemed different. Its very material appeared to host or sustain the glow. Was it embedded with engineered alloys or coated with reflective compounds designed to amplify the light? Could the illumination even be powered by the sun itself, an interstellar scale equivalent of photovoltaics, refined far beyond anything humanity had achieved? The puzzle became multi-layered. The physics of the emissions, the chemistry of the host body, the engineering that bound them together. Each clue pointed toward a mastery that united disciplines we still keep separate. And humanity, awestruck, was only beginning to process the ripple effects. Universities scrambled to respond. Entire new courses appeared, blending astronomy with philosophy, engineering with speculative anthropology. Students debated what kind of civilization would dispatch illuminated travelers into the void. Were they explorers charting the dark, archivists preserving knowledge, or expansionists marking their territory? The very presence of 3I Atlas forced a reconsideration of what long-term purpose looks like. To send an artifact across the Gulf of Stars requires patience beyond human history, planning that spans not decades, not centuries, but millennia. Such foresight implied not only vision, but resilience and stability at a scale Earth has never achieved. For policymakers, the lesson was sobering. The stakes could not be ignored. Committees assembled across the world, drafting frameworks not for direct communication, but for preparation. If 3I Atlas was one of many, as the evidence increasingly suggested, then another would follow, perhaps moving slower, perhaps easier to study. The question was no longer if, but when. The international community faced a pivotal choice: treat these objects as fleeting curiosities, or unite resources to systematically intercept and examine interstellar visitors. The latter path demanded collaboration on a scale humanity had never achieved before. It would require not just the cooperation of scientists and engineers, but alliances across nations, because no single country could lay claim to a traveler from another star. Space exploration, once defined by competition and rivalry, now whispered of a future shaped by cooperation. To study what drifts between the stars, humanity itself would have to rise to the challenge, together. And now, we turn to you. What do you think James Webb truly uncovered when it detected those artificial lights on 3I Atlas? Was it a beacon, a probe, or something else entirely? Drop your thoughts in the comments. We want to hear your theories. If this story sparked your imagination, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe to our channel, and share this video with others who wonder about our place in the cosmos. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.